Marcus Webb wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the crystal canyons of Kest 7. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. He was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien animals, and he worked at the small mining colony on this distant planet. Today he was just collecting samples of plants and checking on the local wildlife. The ground shook beneath his feet. Marcus froze. That was not normal. He heard a sound like thunder mixed with a painful groan. It came from behind the large crystal formations ahead. Every instinct told him to run back to the colony, but his curiosity was stronger. He moved forward carefully, his heart pounding in his chest. What he saw made him stop breathing for a moment. A Drakthar lay in the canyon, half hidden by shadows. The creature was massive, easily the size of a cargo ship. Its scales were black and deep red, shimmering even in the fading light. One of its huge wings was torn and twisted, bleeding a thick silver liquid. The wound looked infected, swollen and angry. Marcus knew what a Drakthar was. Everyone in the galaxy knew. They were the deadliest predators in space. Void dragons, people called them. They could breathe plasma hot enough to melt steel. They could survive in the vacuum of space. They had killed entire teams of explorers. The rule was simple: if you see one, run and call for help. But Marcus did not run. The dragon's eye opened. It was golden and intelligent, filled with pain but also awareness. The creature watched him but did not move. It was too weak, too hurt. Marcus could see it was dying. He should have called the colony. He should have evacuated the area. Instead he took a step forward. "Easy," Marcus whispered, though he knew the dragon probably could not understand him. "I am not going to hurt you." The dragon made a low rumbling sound. It was not aggressive. It sounded almost sad. Marcus made his decision. He opened his medical kit and pulled out everything he had. Antibiotics, medical nanites, wound sealant, pain suppressors. This was his entire supply, meant to last 3 months. He was about to use it all on a creature that could kill him with one bite. He approached slowly, his hands raised. The dragon watched every movement but did not attack. When Marcus reached the wounded wing, the smell of infection hit him hard. The wound was deep, probably from weapons fire. Poachers, he thought angrily. They hunted these creatures for their scales, which were worth millions. "This is going to hurt," Marcus said softly. He began to clean the wound. The dragon's muscles tensed, but it held still. Marcus worked for hours as darkness fell around them. He used his headlamp to see, carefully removing dead tissue, applying nanites to fight the infection, and sealing the torn membrane of the wing. His hands were steady even though his mind screamed at him about the danger. The dragon watched him the entire time. Sometimes it made soft sounds, almost like it was trying to communicate. Marcus kept talking to it, his voice calm and gentle, even though he was terrified. Finally it was done. Marcus stepped back, exhausted. He had used everything. The wound was cleaned, sealed, and treated. It would take time to heal, but the dragon might survive now. The creature looked at its wing, then at Marcus. It made a sound different from before, something between a growl and a song. The sound resonated in Marcus's chest, deep and powerful. Then slowly, painfully, the dragon stood. It was even more magnificent standing up, towering over him like a mountain. For a moment Marcus thought this was it. He had been a fool and now he would die. But the dragon just looked at him one more time with those intelligent golden eyes. Then it limped away into the darkness of the canyon, disappearing into the night. Marcus stood there alone, shaking. He had just saved the life of the galaxy's deadliest predator. And somehow he knew she had understood. 3 weeks passed since that night in the canyon. Marcus returned to the colony and told no one what he had done. He knew they would think he was crazy. Saving a Drakthar was against every safety protocol. He could lose his job or worse. But everything changed when someone spotted a dragon near the colony. The alarm sirens wailed through the streets. People ran to their homes and locked their doors. Children were pulled inside. The Colonial Defense Force mobilized their weapons and vehicles. Marcus heard the announcement over the speakers. Drakthar sighting confirmed. All citizens shelter in place. Defense Force authorized to neutralize the threat. Marcus's blood ran cold. He knew it was her. It had to be. She was still in the area, still recovering from her wounds. If the Defense Force found her, they would kill her. He ran to the command center where Commander Phillips was organizing the attack. Maps and sensor data covered the screens on the walls. "Commander, you cannot do this," Marcus said, breathing hard. Phillips turned to him with cold eyes. "A Drakthar is a Class 5 predator, Dr. Webb. It is my duty to protect this colony. She is not threatening anyone. She is just recovering from injuries." "How do you know it is injured?" Phillips asked suspiciously. Marcus realized his mistake but pushed forward. I have been tracking her. She was wounded by poachers. She needs time to heal and leave. Poachers? Phillips frowned. We have had no reports of poachers in this sector. That night, Marcus hacked into the colony's communication logs. He was not good with computers, but he was desperate. What he found made him angry. A ship called the Razor's Edge had been operating in the area for months, illegally hunting Drakthar. Their biometallic scales were worth fortunes on the black market. The colony authorities had ignored the reports. Marcus made a choice. He downloaded the poachers' location data and sent false information to the defense force, telling them the dragon was spotted on the other side of the planet. Then he grabbed his gear and headed back to the canyons. He found her resting on a high cliff, her wing looking much better. When she saw him approaching, she lifted her massive head. Marcus saw recognition in her golden eyes. You need to leave, Marcus called up to her. They are coming to kill you. The dragon made a low sound, almost like a question. Then Marcus heard engines behind him. 3 armed vehicles appeared, but they were not from the defense force. These were unmarked, painted black. Poachers. They had been tracking the dragon too. Men jumped out with heavy plasma weapons. The leader, a scarred man with cold eyes, grinned when he saw the dragon. Perfect. She is still too weak to fly fast. One dragon will make us all rich. Marcus stepped between them and the cliff. She is under xenobiological protection. You cannot hunt her. The leader laughed. There is no protection for dragons, fool. Move or die with it. No, Marcus said firmly. The poachers raised their weapons. Marcus closed his eyes, expecting the end. Then a shadow fell over them all. The dragon had jumped down from the cliff, landing between Marcus and the poachers. Even injured, she was terrifying. Her scales gleamed like armor. Her teeth were as long as swords. She opened her mouth and a glow built in her throat. Fire! Fire! The leader screamed. Plasma bolts hit the dragon's side, but her scales deflected most of them. Then she moved with shocking speed. Her massive body shielded Marcus completely as she swept her tail, smashing 2 vehicles. Her plasma breath shot out, a stream of blue-white fire that melted the poachers' weapons and sent them running for their lives. The battle lasted only minutes. When it was over, the poachers were gone, their equipment destroyed. The dragon had burns on her side from the weapon's fire, but she was alive. She turned to Marcus, lowering her huge head. Gently, almost carefully, she touched her snout to his chest. The gesture was soft, deliberate. Marcus placed his hand on her scaled nose. Thank you, he whispered. The dragon made that singing sound again, deeper this time. Then her wings spread wide. She was healed enough to fly. With a powerful leap, she took to the sky and disappeared into the stars. Marcus watched her go, knowing somehow that this was not goodbye. 12 years passed like water flowing down a river. Marcus Webb was no longer a simple colony medic. He was now the director of xenobiological conservation for the Frontier Worlds Alliance. His story about the Drakthar had spread across the galaxy. Some people called him a hero. Others called him reckless. But everyone knew his name. He lived on Novaterra now, a beautiful planet with green forests and blue oceans. He ran a conservation sanctuary where he protected endangered alien species. It was peaceful work, far from the dangers of his younger days. Marcus had changed too. His hair had gray in it now. He had a wife named Elena, a shuttle pilot who loved his stories. And he had a daughter, Sarah, who was 7 years old with wild brown hair and endless questions about aliens. Papa, tell me again about the dragon, Sarah would say every night before bed. And Marcus would tell her about the massive creature with black and red scales, about her golden eyes full of intelligence, about the night he chose compassion over fear. He kept one of her scales in a glass case in his office. It was the size of his hand, shimmering like metal but warm like stone. She had left it behind in the canyon that night. He looked at it often and wondered where she was now, if she was still alive, if she ever thought about the human who had helped her. Life was good and quiet. Until the reports started coming in. Director Webb, we have multiple Drakthar sightings near Novaterra, his assistant told him one morning. 4, maybe 5 signatures on the scanners. Marcus felt his heart skip. Drakthar rarely traveled in groups. They were solitary creatures meeting only to mate. Multiple dragons in one area meant something unusual was happening. The planetary defense forces went on high alert. Weapons systems came online. Evacuation plans were prepared. People were scared. But Marcus felt something different. Something familiar. He studied the sensor readings late into the night. The patterns of movement, the energy signatures. One of them felt like a memory. It cannot be, he whispered to himself. After all these years? Elena found him staring at the screens at 3 in the morning. Marcus, come to bed. Let the defense force handle it. What if it is her? He asked quietly. The dragon you saved? Marcus, that was 12 years ago. Why would she come back? He had no answer. But he could not shake the feeling. 3 nights later, Marcus was working late at the sanctuary. Most of the staff had gone home. Only the automated systems watched over the sleeping animals. Sarah was staying with her grandmother in the city, and Elena was on a cargo run to the outer colonies. Marcus was alone when the sensors began screaming. Something massive was approaching. Something huge. The defense systems activated automatically, but Marcus overrode them with his director codes. He walked outside into the cool night air. The stars disappeared as a shadow passed overhead. The wind from enormous wings nearly knocked him down. Then she landed in the clearing in front of his sanctuary building. The dragon was bigger than he remembered. Her scales were covered in scars from years of survival. Her eyes were the same golden color, wise and ancient. She looked at Marcus and made a sound, a deep rumbling song that he felt in his bones. It is you, Marcus breathed. You came back. But she was not alone. Behind her, 4 smaller shapes moved in the darkness. Hatchlings, each one the size of a small shuttle. Their scales were brighter, less scarred. They watched Marcus with curious eyes, tilting their heads like their mother. The mother dragon lowered her head to Marcus. She made another sound, softer this time. Even without translation, Marcus understood. She had brought her children to meet him. His hands shook as he reached up to touch her snout, just like that night 12 years ago. I never forgot you either, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. The hatchlings chirped and moved closer, interested in this small human who showed no fear. Marcus smiled through his tears. She had not just remembered him. She had honored him with the most precious gift a mother could give, her trust. The small wooden box sat on Emma's kitchen table, wrapped in brown paper and tied with rough string. There was no return address, no note, nothing to explain where it came from. She had found it on her doorstep that morning when she went out to get the newspaper. Emma lived alone in a cottage at the edge of town. She was a quiet woman who kept to herself, worked at the library and bothered no one. She couldn't think of anyone who would send her a gift. Her birthday was months away, and she had no family left. She untied the string carefully and pulled away the paper. The box underneath was old, made of dark wood with strange symbols carved into its surface. Her fingers traced the patterns. They felt warm under her touch, almost alive. Inside the box was a smooth black stone, no bigger than a chicken egg. It was perfectly round and so dark it seemed to swallow the light around it. Emma picked it up, and the moment her skin touched it, something changed. The world went silent. Not the normal kind of quiet, but a complete absence of sound. Then, slowly she began to hear things. Whispers. Voices that seemed to come from far away and very close at the same time. Help me, one voice said. I'm lost, said another. Please someone listen, begged a third. Emma dropped the stone back into the box and stumbled backward. Her heart hammered in her chest. The voices stopped immediately. She stood there, breathing hard, staring at the innocent-looking box on her table. For 3 days she didn't touch it again. She pushed the box to the back of a closet and tried to forget about it. But the voices found her anyway. At work, she would hear whispers between the library shelves. Walking home, she caught fragments of conversations that seemed to drift on the wind. None of the other people around her seemed to notice. On the 4th night, Emma couldn't sleep. The whispers were growing louder, more insistent. Finally, she got up and retrieved the box from the closet. She sat at her table and took out the stone. This time she held it firmly and didn't let go. The voices rushed in like a flood, but she forced herself to listen. Slowly she began to understand. These weren't random whispers. They were messages. Please. The voices of people who had died with words left unspoken. Tell my daughter I forgive her, one voice said clearly. The money is hidden in the garden shed under the 3rd board from the left, said another. I loved him. I should have said it. Tell him I loved him. Emma realized what the stone was. It was a gift, yes, but also a responsibility. It was a bridge between the living and the dead, and somehow, it had chosen her. The next morning she started with the easiest message. An old man's voice had told her about money hidden in a shed. Emma looked up recent deaths in the newspaper and found a story about Henry Walsh, who had died 2 weeks ago. His address was listed. She walked to the house and knocked on the door. A tired-looking woman answered. Yes. This will sound strange, Emma said carefully, But your father wanted you to know about money in the garden shed. Under the third board from the left. The woman's face went pale. How could you possibly know that? Who are you? Just someone delivering a message, Emma said and walked away before there could be more questions. Over the following weeks, Emma delivered more messages. Some brought peace. Some brought tears. Some changed lives. She didn't ask for anything in return. She simply listened to the stone and did what needed to be done. People in town began to talk about the strange woman who knew impossible things. Some called her a fraud. Others called her a miracle. Emma didn't care what they called her. She had been given a gift and she would use it. Every voice deserved to be heard, even those that came from beyond the silence of death. And Emma would listen to them all. Emma had delivered 17 messages when she met the boy. He was standing outside the library where she worked, staring at her with dark, knowing eyes. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, dressed in clothes that looked too big for his thin frame. You can hear them too, he said. It wasn't a question. Emma froze, her hand on the library door. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The boy stepped closer. The voices. The ones that won't go away. The dead people who need help. Emma looked around nervously. The street was empty but she still felt exposed. How do you know about that? The boy pulled something from his pocket. It was a stone just like hers but white instead of black. Because I have one too. Mine showed up 3 months ago. They sat on a bench in the small park across from the library. The boy's name was Oliver. He lived 2 towns over with his grandmother who thought he was going crazy because he kept talking about voices. He had run away to find someone who would understand. There are more of us, Oliver said quietly. I've been hearing things. Not just the dead people's voices but something else. Like a humming in my head. It gets louder when I'm near someone with a stone. Emma had felt it too, though she hadn't known what it was until now. A strange vibration that pulled at something deep inside her. Do you know where the stones come from? Oliver shook his head. No. But I think they're connected somehow. When I hold mine and think really hard about finding others, I can feel them. Like dots on a map in my mind. There's one in the city, 2 more north of here, and one far away across the ocean. Why us? Emma asked. Why were we chosen? Maybe we weren't chosen. Maybe we were just ready. Oliver looked at his stone. My grandma says some people are born with hearts that can hold more than others. More love, more pain, more understanding. Maybe that's what these stones need. People who can carry the weight of all these unfinished stories. Over the next few days, Oliver stayed with Emma. She called his grandmother and explained that the boy was safe. The old woman sounded relieved and asked no questions, as if she somehow understood that her grandson needed this. Together they delivered messages. Oliver's stone worked differently than Emma's. While she heard specific words from individual spirits, he felt emotions and saw images. They made a good team. When Emma couldn't understand a message fully, Oliver's visions would fill in the missing pieces. One evening they sat in Emma's kitchen, both stones placed side by side on the table. The black stone and the white stone seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. What if we put them together? Oliver asked suddenly. Emma felt a flutter of fear. I don't know if that's a good idea. But Oliver was already moving. He pushed the stones until they touched. The moment they connected, light exploded from them. Not bright enough to hurt, but warm and encompassing. The voices that usually whispered became a choir, singing in harmony. Emma and Oliver could suddenly see what the stones really were. They weren't separate objects. They were pieces of something larger, something that had been broken apart long ago. And there were more pieces out there, scattered across the world, waiting to be reunited. We have to find the others, Oliver whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. The people who have the other stones. We have to bring them all together. Emma understood now. This wasn't just about delivering messages from the dead. It was about something bigger. A purpose that stretched beyond her quiet life in her small cottage. She looked at the boy beside her, this strange child who had found her when she needed him most. Then we'll find them, she said firmly. Together. Oliver smiled, and for the first time since receiving her stone, Emma didn't feel alone. The bond between them was real, forged by magic and purpose and the weight of voices that needed to be heard. They were no longer just messengers. They were seekers, and their true journey was only beginning.